All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 126th episode of The Get Down. I'm a little rusty. It's been like 2 weeks since we recorded here.
It feels like forever.
Big shout to Digital Music Pool, sponsor of the podcast. You can check out Digital Music Pool for your first month for $9.99. Click the link in our show notes. You know all the editors that are on there, myself, Angelo the Kid, Chumpian, Armin Averu, Dan FX. There's so many now. We're just a growing army. So go check out
phenomenal.
DMP. I actually just posted 2 edits for the first time in about a month because I've been so focused on original music. So those just went up if you guys are interested.
You actually sent me samples of them, which I haven't gotten any of that. I've gotten no love on your edits, no input on what you should do to them, nothing. I feel very left out, and I'm pissed.
You gave me input on one of them, like, too late, Garrett. It's already out there.
I'm pissed. I like doing that. That's my favorite thing to do. I'm working with Doug Spin on, I'm not like doing anything. I'm just like the Rick Rubin in the room. I am just giving input and telling him what to do and where to put it and what sounds to add, and that's what I like to do. So I've been working with him for about 3 weeks on a track that I'm excited about.
I like it. I've been slacking on the edit game, man. It's something I really enjoy doing, and something that I really try and get a couple edits out every single week for a number of reasons. It just keeps me fresh, producing, and I think it's just good. It gives me new music to play that nobody else has, so like I'm trying to get back to doing that. So 2 out and working on 2 more to get out at the end of the week, and we'll just keep pumping edits. Actually, Cream and Friends Edit Pack Volume 2 dropping next Thursday. I'm not even gonna tease who they are, but we're going with 3 Euro artists for this one.
All right.
That's what I'll give you guys. But 3 artists similar to the guys we had on the first one. Guys I think are putting out like some of the best edits that I play. So,
all right.
Little banter this time. So let's get into this episode. I think there's been a lot of talk and on DJ Twitter and wherever else about the Road podcast just had Clinton Sparks. And, we were talking about it on Discord too. And, there's a lot of ways that you could look at that conversation. He's gotten a little heat from it. It's been a little controversial, right, to say the least. And go check it out if you haven't listened to it. I really enjoyed it. It was really entertaining. But I also think that Clinton actually had some really great advice. And one of the biggest takeaways I had from that conversation was keep emotion out of your business. And thinking about it, as I've conducted business since I listened to it last week, I've been keeping that in the back of my mind. Like, Kareem, don't get emotional about this. It's business. This is not about a personal relationship. Someone's asking you or telling you or giving you feedback, not because they want to hurt your feelings or because they want to put you down personally. It's because it's something that they want to use to move their business forward. And I think all of us could take that advice, and it would really, really, really help everybody.
This has always been a very important piece of when walking away or even walking into a new opportunity that you really should always keep in the back of my mind. I know I always have. I've conducted a ton of business with friends over the years. I grew up playing some of my first gigs with Ron Rodrigo from Rated R Management. We used to do a Thursday party in North Arlington, actually in one of the spaces that we now book. And, I didn't really grow as fast with him as I would have liked to. And I'm like, well, we're boys. I don't understand why this isn't happening the way I want it to happen. But so I learned early on when I was 17 years old to that's his business and this is my business, and then our friendship exists outside of that, right? And I still have that same relationship with Ron to this day, to where we can have disagreements on the business front, and it's not going to affect our friendship on the other side, right? And I feel like I've always grown up with these situations because I've always done business with friends. It's always just been a natural thing for me, especially when you start off at such a young age that you find the people in your circle or in your kind of immediate area that are into the same things, and then you grow together, right? Whether that's in a completely parallel way or it gets a little squiggly from there. So it's something that I've always thought about for many, many years.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and really separating that and really like having that conversation like with that person that maybe you have a really strong friendship with. We do it, where it's like, Gary, we have to talk about XYZ, or you say, Kareem, we have to talk about XYZ, and it's has nothing to do with our friendship outside of our business, but sometimes we have to give each other critical feedback, and it's like if one of us takes it some type of way, it hurts both personal and business relationships, right?
Right.
So I think there's certain ways and certain things that you guys as DJs and as businesses should think about as, certain things happen to you. So especially when you're getting feedback. If you're getting feedback from someone, it's not because they want to put you down or throw shade at you or anything. It's because they want you to do a better job, When I give feedback to our DJs, I always say up front, like, listen, we're going to have a conversation. You might not like it, but this has nothing to do with our relationship. It's just me giving you feedback to help you become better. And the people that are open to that feedback and use it the next time they're in the same situation are going to grow and are going to get better and are going to grow within the company. And the people who fight us on it or don't want to change or take it to heart just aren't going to grow,
It's very transparent. As much as somebody would like to hide that they're disgruntled about getting bad feedback, you can't hide it. I don't care how good of an actor you are. I don't care how good you think you are at hiding it. I mean, like I always say, we are paid to read people. I can read anybody through a phone. I can read, and especially face to face. As much as you want to say it didn't bother me. It bothers all of us. It's human nature.
Yeah,
right?
It bothers me for sure.
We know it bothers you, Kareem. So, as much as we want to say it doesn't bother us, it does. It bothers us. It is who we are. We put a lot into our art. I hope we do, and especially when we do and you get negative feedback, that's really disheartening, right? But you have to take all of those L's, if you will, as a learning experience. Everybody can get better. We can all get better. The best DJs in the world can get better. The best businessmen in the world can get better, right? But how are you going to get better? And then that's where you have to kind of check yourself and go dig into like, oh, well, maybe I messed up here. Maybe I could have thought about this a little better. Maybe I could have done that a little better. Whether it's set up songs or have better flow to your set or don't scratch as much or maybe don't be in the mic as much. And all of these little elements that can piss somebody off in the room, a decision maker, maybe those are the ways that you can get better, right? So as much as some people don't really want to own the I didn't get pissed off, like I don't really buy that. I actually just heard something. I was watching a video literally just before we came on here, and somebody was like, "Oh, well, social media has constantly fed us. We're kind of bigger than we really are, right?" Somebody's always blowing smoke up our ass in the comment section, like fire emojis and "you're the best DJ ever." And
that's a podcast in itself, right there.
Whatever it might, which we can dig further into this because it was an interesting comment. And all of a sudden our ego is a lot bigger than actually who we are as this professional, right? So when you get that negative criticism, it's almost like, who the fuck are you to tell me who I am? You know who I am? The person I've been told 6 times this weekend that your set was amazing, that went off, and you're the best DJ that's ever played here, and all this stuff that is very it's not tangible because the way people consume music is very personal, right? So maybe the best DJ in the room to one person, you're terrible to another person. That happened to me at a set where somebody was like, you were god-awful, you should never DJ again. And somebody else was like, oh, my God, that was amazing. I can't wait to come back and see you again. And it's just like super confusion at that point. But it's just all that's a very personal thing, the way people consume music. So to get back to what we were talking about, it's just you have to keep emotion out of it because it's just better for your mental health, really, at the end of the day. Business is business.
You can't get too high or too low, right? The people that are successful are generally pretty even-keeled, right? You're going to celebrate your wins. You're going to be happy if you get good feedback, but don't think that now you're the best thing out if you got some good feedback, right? And conversely, if you got some negative feedback or, you didn't do so well in a situation, it doesn't mean that you're a bad DJ, and it doesn't mean you need to get down on yourself. Yeah, I take things seriously because I care so much, right? This is my business. This is what we wake up and work on every single day. I don't want to get negative feedback, but if I do get negative feedback, that negative feedback is going to sit on my shoulder and be a chip on my shoulder every single time I'm around that person in that venue or doing anything. And I use it as motivation. I think you guys should use negative comments, negative feedback as motivation. Use the positive stuff too. And like I said, you don't want to get too high. You don't want to get too low. Take it in stride.
I think another big one that this is really like this gets which feels very personal is losing a residency. I know
that one hurts a little more, I think.
I can point out one for me that was a big deal, and I can definitely point out one for you that was a big deal. But I know that when I had wound up leaving Sona 13, which wound up becoming South Street Social, and kind of losing
Morristown, New Jersey.
In Morristown, New Jersey, sorry.
Like 30 minutes outside New York, pretty much.
Which is like it was a small up-and-coming market. It's still not a there market yet, but it's good for the area that it's in, right? I felt, being there for 10 years, I felt very taken aback when like they went a specific day was they went a different direction for their St. Patty's Parade Day, like the day before. And I was like so emotional about it. You were with me actually when it happened.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that was hard to separate like the business and the emotional part of it because it had put so much time and effort into that venue. But then like when you take a step back, you have to understand what some of those relationships did for you too on the other side, right? And now maybe that opens up a new door for you to go a different direction and have a new path, which it did, I think, for our company for sure. So I think it's important when those ones that really sting, you like losing a long-term residency, it's okay to be a little emotional up front, not confrontational with the person that's maybe letting you go, but being emotional internally and then stepping back and understand what that relationship did for you in the positive sense, and then take all of those positive things and change them for the future, or use them for the future, change the negative stuff.
One of the best ways you could look at losing a residency or a big gig or something like that, it's going to sting. It's going to hurt anybody that it happens to. But you have to look at it like, all right, this now opens up my Friday or opens up my Saturday to do something else. And many times we all get comfortable and we think our local stuff is the end-all, be-all. And then you kind of get rid of some of that stuff and you start booking bigger and better shows and travel shows and stuff for more money, and losing that thing that you at one time thought was like the end-all, be-all, you look back and you're like, man, why did I ever think that way? Losing that opportunity allowed me to grow so much more. So it's going to hurt in the short term, but if you take a long-term approach and look at it, you might be better off in the long run. And just because you lose something doesn't mean you can't get it back in some form, right? It happens. I was the every Saturday resident at Birch nightclub here in Hoboken, and I was there from the day that we opened for 3-4 years, every single Saturday. And they just reached the point where it was like, Kareem, we want to try some other guys. Like, it's not that you're doing a bad job, but we just want to do some other stuff.
Right.
And now that relationship's transformed into, we're booking local talent, we're booking regional talent, we're now booking artists, and it's like transformed to this bigger thing. But if I left there and talk shit about the venue and the management and all this stuff on social, or, just didn't take it in stride and use it as motivation, that stuff would not be there 2 years, 3 years later, kind of thing,
For sure. I just want to go through a couple of these. So we have a lot of different points and a lot of different approaches to take this. I think another one was just a venue opting and going a different direction, not as if it was not just your residency, just but like somewhere that you're playing. I mean, I think a lot of the same points kind of go along with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same type of thing. I think the residency is going to hurt more because you've built those personal relationships. You have regular customers that come in. It's a little different because you're more ingrained in that business, and you, as a DJ in a business, feel more connected to it. It's just natural, I think.
That's where the don't burn a bridge comes into play,
right?
Because that you're more you're more liable to be emotional and maybe say something you shouldn't have or post something that you shouldn't have, and that's where you have to keep in mind. Don't burn the bridge.
I have a really great tactic to help in this, not getting emotional. It's something that I've used more recently because listen, I can get hot sometimes. I get a little fired up sometimes, but one of the biggest things that I do when I receive a text or someone gives me an email, some information that maybe like might get me upset or get me a little emotional internally, I don't respond right away. I give it 30 minutes, give it 20 minutes. Just like let your instant reaction calm down a bit so you don't react and you're actually thinking about how should I respond to this instead of just responding and maybe saying the wrong thing. And it also gives you time to process the information and be like, you know what? I understand where they're coming from. Let me work with them on this, and it's going to help me in the long run rather than fighting on it and being, argumentative about the situation.
We've said this time and time again, go to your professional sounding board, right? I don't think that this isn't go to your significant other. Don't go to your parents. Don't go to your sister or your brother. Go to your professional sounding board. Who do you turn to when something doesn't go right professionally for you, right? And somebody that has some insight into the business who can give you some fair criticism on what maybe this situation's about. And then you can have a fair and honest conversation. How that conversation usually starts off is the person who's hot. So if it's you that's kind of hot about something, venting the shit out of like on via text or like, a voice note or a phone call, like the vent needs to happen first because then you can kind of, you get it out and then you can read back like, was this a little too much? Was I irrational? And then it's always good to follow up and have that conversation with that professional sounding board. And then you can go back and respond in a fair and level-headed way.
It would be hilarious if we could save all the voice notes that we've sent back and forth over the years about certain situations. Something else though too, like as bookers, we've gained and lost venues, right? And sometimes you and I are like, we didn't do a good job there. We deserve to lose that account. Not that we've lost a lot of accounts over the years, but there's been a handful for sure. There's also been stuff we've had no control over, and it's like we can't dwell on this because there was nothing we could have done better to keep this account kind of thing. Or maybe we just said we didn't want to keep that account anyway, So it goes across anything that you do. You could use a lot of this stuff in your personal relationships with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, your significant other. I think a lot of this stuff, like acting emotionally, doesn't always yield the best results. It
never, ever, not once does that yield the best result, right? It'll yield a result. But is it
not always a good one?
Is it going to be positive at the end of it? Which leads us right into the next one, which would be keep your personal relationships out of work. I think getting emotional within the workplace, whether you're involved with somebody else who works at the venue, which happens in our industry constantly, right? I mean, that's like...
It's hard to date in our industry. So many times, nightlife, restaurant, hospitality people date other hospitality people. It just is what it is.
It can get ugly if there's if you're having an issue with your significant other who you might work with. You have to keep all of those things very, very separate. You have to, I think for us guys that are maybe DJing and dating a bartender, like you have to understand it's their job to flirt and it's our job to talk to girls and take requests, and like you have to have that professional nature about your work relationship, and then keep that far separate from your personal relationship with that other person.
Yeah, I mean, we're both in relationships with current, past bartenders, right? So it's like I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 4 years I've been with my girlfriend is communication, right? That's the biggest thing about keeping those relationships together and making sure that stuff that if you're working together, like, hey, this person was up here, this is why they were in the DJ booth, or this is why, this guy was hanging out at my bar because he spent $6,000 or something, like whatever, whatever the, right. And just having that conversation. And even if you're not working together, still having those conversations.
Yeah. I agreed. I I'm a big proponent of like jealousy doesn't exist in my world. Like, you know what I mean? For me, I mean, it's easier said for me probably than for the female counterpart. I
Yeah.
know she would laugh at me she'd be like, oh no, jealousy exists.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have that at least a little bit.
Right. But, you know, it's important, though, like when you're at work with your significant other, if that is the case, that like there is no jealousy and there is no, at least within those work hours, right? You could take that up at home afterward all day long.
Yeah.
Just don't do it when you're at work. So keep your emotional relationships separate. Even anything with like family, if that comes up, so to get away from relationships, even like if you're having family issues, like try not to take, it's hard, but try not to take that stuff to work with you, right? Like I feel like we all DJ because we have a passion for DJing. We love DJing. We love music. We love the interaction with the crowd and the people that we work with. I think you and I have been in situations where we've had to, you know, you have to leave it at the door and go do your job, and then, you know what, you can pick it back up on the way out. You know what I mean? Easier said than done, but something that you can kind of mentally prepare yourself for when walking into a gig, when maybe carrying around a little baggage.
Many times that DJ set helps me get through some of that stuff. Like my dad passed away, 4 years ago now?
Yeah.
I worked 4 days later. You know, I had a gig, or I don't remember exactly what I did, but I had 1 or 2 gigs, and I kept one of the gigs, and I was like, I need this. You know, I need this outlet to be able to go and do what I love and go perform and play music and see the people that I worked with that were going to help me in that moment. And like, I still remember that set after my dad passed away, and it was like really emotional, but it was really much needed, you know?
Yeah, I think that those situations can help people, you know, positively when that
like
happens.
when we do this we do this so much, we love doing it. It's like sometimes we need to go to work and go play music, and like it lets us forget about the personal stuff that's happening.
It's better than just sitting around wallowing in it sometimes. I mean, you see professional athletes do it, you know, often. Where they'll play under strange circumstances, and they'll often, you know, excel in some way. So it's kind of
very similar, like very, very, very similar. Because I would have done the same thing if I was in high school and playing sports, or college and playing sports. I would want to play, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I had 2 grandparents pass away during a DJ set. The same DJ set.
Yeah.
And like that was wild. But like I remember thinking like if I had gotten that news, I got that news while I was DJing, which was so strange. But my family was like, well, they didn't want you to see it on social media was the thing.
Yeah.
So like I had to finish that set, but like but getting through I was like, well, this would have been way worse if I was sitting at home. You know? So like I got to be doing my thing, the thing that I like to do, and have like a little bit of an outlet, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, you know, that's another way to kind of try to separate emotion and use kind of what we do as a positive.
All right, I want to pivot. I think we've hit that topic pretty well. Yeah. So recently, I've had some time off, and I've been able to go listen to some DJs and kind of just take in music a little bit more as a fan and as a customer, rather than constantly being a DJ. And I sent an email to Get Down, and I was like, what are your DJ pet peeves? Like, what are some of the things that you watch or hear DJs do that just like drives you crazy? Because I could go on for a while on this one.
I feel like you have way more than I do.
We've been hating on venues all day, so like let's get a little DJ hate out here right now.
I have one thing that I have in mind, that I walked into a set to where, in a place where I didn't feel like the microphone needed to be absolutely abused, and it wasn't the crowd that I felt like needed constant stimulation via the mic. And at like, I don't know, maybe like 35, 45 minutes into the set, I'm like, shut the fuck up and just play a goddamn song. Like, I just want to hear a song. Like, you don't fucking sing any of these songs. I don't need to hear you on every single one of them.
Yeah.
And I am not somebody who consumes a DJ who's constantly on the mic, like a DJ Camilo who's always on the mic. like that's not my favorite style. I understand there's a venue for it. He's particularly very good at it.
Yeah.
He's that's like his signature almost. But like I feel like knowing when and where to use the microphone is something that when it's not used correctly bothers the shit out of me.
Camilo got so good at it that there are now other DJs that are like Camilo disciples and have taken that style and tried to make it their own or just follow in his footsteps, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't really think of that one as something, but yeah, that would bother me as well, for sure. One of mine would be a lot of the venues we go to are open format venues, right? And I personally think there's a way to go from one genre to the other seamlessly, to be able to take customers on a journey and not just like randomly be playing songs. And my girlfriend will tell me, like, that DJ had no flow. I hated him. They weren't good because they were just playing random songs. And it would be, you know, a Bad Bunny track to a hip-hop track to an EDM track back to a... And there's just no flow whatsoever. And I think it's important for us as DJs to be able to take customers on a journey and be thoughtful about how you go from point A to point B to point C. And maybe you have a song that you want to get to, but you have to figure out a way to get there rather than just going directly to it where it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It shows me a lot about how a DJ's skill if they can or can't do that.
Yeah, the only way that I've found myself like kind of doing something that look like that is when I'm trying to find a room. Right, like when the night's a little weird. So you're trying to find what's going on in the room. So you're kind of like you're fishing, if you will. That's the only time that I can ever think that I'd be like really jumping genres. But I would still be doing it with like transition tracks, or at least like matching up, having some kind of continuity. Right, like something relates to the next song in some way. Like, it has to. I don't care if it's a little Latin drum in the back and then you're going to Bad Bunny. Like, that's fine. But, like, something needs to...
There's so many ways to do this, right? Like, you could, if you're playing house music, you could play a Latin house track and then a transition down to reggaeton. If you're playing hip-hop and you want to get to reggaeton, you could play hip-hop, a moombahton with a hip-hop track, then a reggae track, and then reggaeton. Like, there's just so many ways to make it happen smoothly that I just don't understand how someone can just jump around so much, you know?
Here's a little something that I did within the year, which is so strange that it took me this long to do. I have like 3 different transition crates where I'll have like a Latin transition crate, like a hip-hop transition crate, and I think I have a house transition crate too. All of them let me get to the other one in some way.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, I'm stuck in this Latin set, and now I want to get to, I don't know, hip-hop. Well, now I can go into either one of those crates, and I can get to one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've struggled lately with how to organize my transitions, but I like that idea. I think that's a good one.
It's something that I literally just did within the year because doing Latin night as, like, PayPass became huge and all that stuff. So I guess it's been maybe like 2 years since I've been doing this. Since all of that stuff has become big, I'm like, all right, well, this is good because now I can get from my Latin shit to my house stuff. But now what if like I need to get from my house stuff back down to my Latin stuff? Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I have this whole Latin transition crate where there's 90 BPM stuff all the way up to 128 BPM stuff that can get you all over the place.
Right. I think that leans well or translates well into my next pet peeve, which is DJs who try to play genres that they either aren't comfortable or aren't prepared to play. So I think as a DJ, you need to look at yourself and be like, either I can do this or I can't do this. And just because something's offered to you doesn't mean that you should take it, right?
Yeah.
If you do take it, you need to prepare like crazy to make sure that you could go into that room and play it well. The example for me would be going and playing in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and playing some of the more reggaeton, Latin-forward venues, and being able to do that confidently and having the tools to do it and knowing what the biggest records are, but at the same time still being able to sprinkle in a little bit of what Cream does, you know, in the open format rooms or the EDM rooms. So if you're going to take something and you're not super comfortable with it, you better prepare like crazy to go in and do a really, really good job.
Yeah, I agreed on all that stuff. I kind of want to move on to the next one because I think the next one's
that's
going to go.
I got nothing else for that.
I think the next one's going to go a little long here. DJ's going too hard too early. Whether you're opener or you're not an opener. Now,
I wrote this down thinking this isn't necessarily shitting on openers. I don't care about that. Like, that's going to happen or it's not going to happen, whatever. Every DJ in the game is exhausted talking about that. To me, it's more about understanding when it's time to pick up the energy, whether you're the opener or whether you're playing the whole night.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
So, I drove Chubbs nuts one night at Birch. I played the biggest song out at 11:45, and he was like, "Bro, it's way too early to play this." I'm like, I was like, "Chubbs, I'm gonna play whatever the fuck I want. I don't care. I don't care if it's too early, but because I have plenty of records on my other end that'll keep the same energy. So it's not.
Yeah.
So this particular topic doesn't always rub me the wrong way completely. I did have an instance a couple weeks ago where somebody's last song was Reload or something, and then I was going on after that, and then I was like, well, how the fuck do I reset the room now? It's 11 p.m. That might have been not the place to leave me.
Right.
Did it bother me, though? I always feel like I can recover. I have enough confidence in myself that I'll recover, no problem.
Right. Because you could just go in and reset the room and maybe you're playing your 11:30 p.m. set for the first 30 minutes and you reopen the room sort of.
But that same venue I went to hard too early, and it probably did frustrate some people that by 12 it's almost like you're exhausted, as a patron. So I could see where that could be, where you're going too hard too early could piss somebody off.
The reason I'd rather hold records till later in the night because I just think you can keep the room longer. And I think, like you said, you're not exhausting their energy. If you exhaust their energy by 1:30, what are you going to do? There's nowhere else to go. If you bring them to a 10 by 12 o'clock and you're jamming them with bangers for 2 hours, where do you go for the last 2 hours?
Honestly, that set made me start to think that way because I was I'd always be able to play a pretty high energy set, but I think in that particular set came in way too hot. So that can happen, guys, where if Cream's right, that should piss people off. If you're a DJ watching another DJ where you're just going balls to the wall first thing, you need to leave some room to build the night.
The other thing too is because I've been playing a lot of bottle service clubs, and I think the bottle service people aren't getting there till 11:30, 12 o'clock. So I can't even think about playing the biggest records until those bottles are out. I don't want to burn those records until people have alcohol at their tables, kind of thing. And I think that's where the nightclub and bar thing can differ a little bit, where you have to hold those records in a club, whereas in a bar you have more freedom to move around how you want to move around.
Yeah, no, that's right, because you don't want to play the biggest record and somebody's spending $10,000, and then you're gonna have to definitely play it again if they want to hear it.
Yeah. All right, and then the last one is just something that I will forever hate on. I'm sorry, and just be so angry and upset about, but DJs that bring controllers and put them on top of perfectly working well equipment, whatever it might be. Honestly, I don't care
moving that equipment.
I don't care what it is that you're replacing with. If the venue has spent money and put a piece of equipment in the room, use that piece of equipment. In most cases,
you should be grateful that there's equipment in the room, because there are several rooms that sometimes don't have equipment. You have to bring your own. So what a luxury when you could just bring your sticks, or you could just bring your laptop. I don't think everybody thinks about it that way. Oh, well, this is what I'm comfortable on.
Right.
Well, then get comfortable on the stuff that's really whatever the industry standard.
What's in the venue. How about that?
Then don't take the gig.
Right.
Don't take the gig. If you're not comfortable in the house equipment, don't take the gig. Because if you took the gig without knowing what the equipment is, you didn't do your pre-gig homework. You didn't ask all the pertinent questions that you should ask prior to taking the gig. That's your fault. That's not anybody else's fault. Think about it that way. You know what I mean? And then the manager or the owner should come up and be like, get your shitty controller off my CDJs.
That's wild.
I've seen it happen. I've seen that particular thing happen way too much, where it's a controller gets either sat on top of a mixer in CDJs, or you're moving the CDJs, perfectly good CDJs, you're moving them, and now risking breaking or something happening to those CDJs because you want to put your controller down because you're more comfortable playing on that.
Right. I'm looking at it from a venue perspective. The more you're moving the equipment in and out, plugging and unplugging, there's more of a potential for failure. The venues spend a lot of money to buy this equipment, and if you're unplugging it and putting it on the floor, probably not the best idea. You know, it's more susceptible to get spilled into. There's just so many more ways things can go wrong when you're moving shit around. The only time that I think it's okay would be if you're a high-end DJ and you have a rider and you're saying, this is what you're booking me, you want to get the best version of me, this is what I play on. When you're big enough to be able to do that, yeah, you could play on whatever you want. But until then, you play on what's in the venue.
Yeah. We tell venues all the time prior to them investing in equipment is that if you're going to not set up a real DJ booth and leave that equipment in the DJ booth and you're going to break it down every weekend, Friday and Saturday, there's a higher chance to have to replace that equipment within the year. Whereas if you just left it there, you'll get several years out of it, right? And that's why it's important to keep venue stuff in place. It's just respect to the venue. They're paying you money to be there and do this service. Well, do it on the stuff that they're providing you.
Yeah,
the equipment that they're providing you with.
So a little DJ hate never hurt anybody. Listen, guys, don't take offense to shit we say. Like, it just is what it is.
It's part of things that we see that we know that owners get upset with, and we hear about it. So
right. All these things an owner has texted or called us about.
Sometimes during a DJ set.
Sometimes, many times during a DJ set. No matter where we are.
It's good. So,
all right, so let's get back to shitting on venues, and let's talk about I want to talk about some strategies that you guys can use if you've worked with a venue or a promoter or a booker, and they're just not paying you, or they're not paying you in a timely fashion. And some of the ways that Gary and I have been able to get paid. Because many times we look at it like, this person forgot about me, they're not paying my invoice, whatever the case may be, the payment might drag out. But oftentimes, like, the owner or booker, like, doesn't even know that you haven't been paid type thing. So, like, what are some things that we've gone through and we can, give suggestions for DJs to go do?
I'll get to your question, but I want to start this conversation from square one, right? When taking a booking or working with a booker or a venue owner or manager, you need to present yourself professionally, right? I think being taken seriously from the get-go is very important, especially when you're a young, up-and-coming DJ, because you don't want to be taken advantage of to where you do get forgotten about, like you said. So the ways that you're going to do that is you're going to talk money prior to the gig, and then immediately following the gig, meaning like Monday or Tuesday, you're going to present an invoice, right? Not everybody does this, Kareem. I think it's something that we do overlook. I think sometimes people will walk into a venue and they're not sending an invoice afterwards. They're just expecting to get paid, right? So having an invoice in place presents you as more professional. Whether that sounds stupid or not, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
That invoice then lets you have a paper trail on who owes you money, which is important. It's not some note on your phone or on your computer.
You should have that note also, though, for sure.
Yes, but I think when working for yourself initially, I think having maybe two folders on your desktop, one that's outstanding invoices, one that's paid invoices, is very important. Definitely have that running list of gigs you did to double check. I have crazier methods that I personally use for keeping triple checks on things. So I think those two folders are very important, and then having the list of venues that you have played is also important. I think then, try on the bottom of that invoice. We've always had the amount of time that is expected to pass before the invoice is due. I've done like 14 days. You could do 10 working days, whatever you feel is comfortable to you.
Realistically, 2 weeks is probably pretty realistic, but I wouldn't, if you're a DJ, don't get upset if it's a month and you haven't gotten paid yet. It happens all the time. Like, net 30 is standard in many places, especially if it's a corporate gig with a hotel or, like a group that has a number of restaurants. They're going to pay their vendors once a month. So net 30 is pretty standard for those.
Having the conversation with the booker and or the accountant to find out how they pay and how often they pay, like what is their schedule, that's important so that you don't feel like that you're being held out on. We have been fortunate enough to work with venues for such a long time that I start to understand without even having the conversation, I'll understand what their pay period is. And some venues are net 30, some pay every week, which is amazing and not even heard of really in our industry.
Right.
And then we know that like when working with a promoter or a DJ group, often that could be a net 30. And it usually is, and it was at least when I was working with other outside agencies. So I think having all of that knowledge in place will give you the upper hand. Especially when things maybe start to go plus net 30. Now, this is when you need to make sure that all of your information is in place, right? So does the owner or is the owner involved in the payments? Does he know about the payments? Does he know about the outstanding invoices? Make sure that you have his proper email or her proper email. Make sure you have the accounting's email or whoever handles the accounting. You should know that information as well. Because this way you can reach out directly. Oftentimes an owner or manager is way too busy. Maybe, like I said, maybe they're not involved in the payments. Maybe they're busy with a million other things that they have going on. Well, go directly to the accountant or whoever's handling the
look at our relationship, right? People hit me up all the time like, Kareem, what's up with the payment? I'm like, dude, I have no idea. Like, Gary handles all of that. So I have no clue. Maybe I booked you there, but I have no idea how you're getting paid or when.
Right. Because when you deal with companies that are multifaceted, a lot of those roles are delegated to one or two people, and you have to make sure that you're in contact with those one or two people. We had several invoices that were that went on for a while, and I realized that I found out later that the person who's paying the invoices thought that the invoices were getting paid, or the owner thought the invoices were getting paid, and the guy who paid the invoices just wasn't responding. So that's like a piece of information that I was missing. So like if you can gain that knowledge, it's important. Sometimes text messaging your contact, maybe they're not getting back to you for a long period of time. Well, now you got to get on a phone call. Sometimes people are just better with phone calls than they are texts. It's just the way of the world. You have to kind of figure out what their comfort is in communication.
I want to reiterate something you said and just take it a one step further. And just when someone reaches out, a booker or an owner, whoever reaches out to book you for something, if it's something, before you say yes, there are a number of questions you need to ask this person, right? What's the date? What's the set time? What's the equipment? How much am I getting paid? When am I getting paid? And there's probably other questions, right, that I'm just not thinking off the top of my head. But beyond that, then you can send them a W-9, a logo, and if you have like an animation for the video wall, like you want to have that ready to go that you can send to the booker. You could even send the invoice when you send over that logo and stuff, right? And it starts that paper trail, like you said. When you're doing all these things and you're asking these questions, the person who's booking you is going to say, this person's a professional DJ. They've done this before. They understand how this works. They're going to take you more seriously. Before you even step in the DJ booth to play any music, you're already setting yourself apart from other people that are not doing any of this. Number two, when you have all that information, you can make a clearer decision on whether or not this is something that you want to do or whether it's something that's worth your time. You know how many times I said yes to something and didn't have all the details, and then when I got the details, I didn't want to do the gig because it was less money or way more hours or a genre that I didn't want to play, whatever the case may be. You have to get all the information before you agree to something. So I think I just want to give you guys that information because I think that's so vitally important, and it will keep you out of many bad situations that you could put yourself in where you might not get paid, you know?
I've been in like you said, you have as well. I've been in countless, probably over 30, probably 30 to 50 situations where like things just didn't go the way I wanted them to. Like you said, longer set, less pay, just not knowing the basics because I got excited about playing said gig, right? Like, if just for an example here, like DJs reaches out to, one of our guys and it's like an automatic yes. They know nothing about the gig, right? Like
Right.
DJs is one of the premier spots in the Jersey Shore, guys, if you're listening. And that's like an automatic yes, and you might be playing for free. You might be asked to bring 30 people. Like you don't know what it entails. It's easy to get overexcited and that yes blurts out without grabbing the information, and that's usually what the case is. That's usually where this mishap comes in. This is where here's another one, like either having a folder on your desktop or emailing yourself or having a note on your phone, all of the pertinent questions that need to be asked while discussing this. Like usually you get a text message or somebody's not cold calling you. You'll have a text message. You'll know that you have a meeting with whatever venue, and you can have these list of questions ready to go during your conversations, during your meeting.
Yeah, that's really smart. And how you respond to that person that reaches out to you is, hey, I'm definitely interested in playing this. I just need some more information before we lock it down. And that's how you approach it. Very simple. And then you ask your questions.
Yep.
And then you make your decision, and that's it.
Yeah, I like that, having like all of your pictures and your logos and your motion graphic and your W-9 and your
yeah, you guys all need to have a folder.
And your invoice, like have that all in one folder on your desktop, readily available, ready to send whenever. You can even email yourself that folder. This way you have it if you're out on the run and somebody needs something from you, you can just dig into your email to
I
just
do it
send
all
it
day.
or in your
I
Dropbox.
keep it in my Dropbox, and
Yeah.
I can just copy and share that link all day. If a booker texts me and they're like, I need your EPK, boom, already got it. Here's everything you ever need. Photos, PNG, party photos, videos, W-9, logo, anything. Super important. Another way to look very professional and for bookers to look at you and take you more seriously.
And when that happens, like I said, like they're going to be more apt to pay you on time, right? Because they're dealing with a professional. They know there's going to be repercussions if you don't get paid.
I think one last thing on this subject is, in all the years that I've been a DJ and in the 5 or 4 years we've had Get Down, there's only one business or actually two businesses, and I think they were affiliated, that have screwed us over and not paid us.
Yeah.
Despite all the things we did, right? Texts, phone calls, emails, going up the ladder to try to get a hold of the CEO, going there in person, threatening legal action, all of those things. And over all the years and all the gigs, it's only been two venues that have ever screwed us over completely. So I think give places the benefit of the doubt. Understand that no one's out here to really screw you over. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. Sometimes people aren't aware of things. And again, don't get emotional about this stuff. Don't go at the person that's booking you like, yo, what the fuck? How come I haven't gotten paid? Blah, 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 blah. You want to know how to never get booked again? Do that. It's happened a lot recently. Not even recently, but it's happened over the years booking DJs where it's like, bro, you're going to get your money, but you came at me like that and I will never work with you again.
Yeah. You want to you can get your money fast that way, sure. But you're never going to get.
I'll pay you out of my personal Venmo just to get you out of my hair and never have to talk to you ever again.
Right, exactly.
Like, see you later, bro. Way to ruin a relationship.
Yeah, that's being very short-sighted.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I think that's all really good advice. Something that we've actually never talked about on this podcast.
Yeah.
So, guys, you can rewind that, take some notes.
You know what I think I'm going to do, Gary? A lot of times the emails that we send out with the podcast, generally will kind of just be an overview of what the pod is about with links. But I think what I'm going to do for this one, and look out for this email. If you're not subscribed to the email chain, you could DM us or, get us your email however you want. But I'm going to put together a list of those questions to ask a booker, and maybe put together a sample folder of like what my EPK folder looks like and what you guys can include in yours.
You know what? I like that because, yours is readily available. Just link it to it. And I think people seeing that visually will really, really, really help. And having that list is so important.
Yeah, for sure. All right, one last thing. We like to end our conversations with some music. I started off this whole thing talking about the Clinton Sparks interview on the Road podcast, and he was throwing out all kinds of stuff. I brought hip hop to Las Vegas. I'm the mixtape king. Like, he had a lot of like big statements made. So I was really, really into the mixtape scene coming up, and just before I was even DJing, I was just really into the mixtape scene. I loved it because they were taking some of the best beats, and you get some of the best rappers or the best up-and-coming rappers to rap over those beats, right? And, like, it wasn't on the radio. It wasn't on CDs or MP3s. You just kind of got lucky and got these mixtapes. So Clinton Sparks, self-proclaimed greatest mixtape DJ of all time. He's definitely up there. He's in the conversation. But I wanted to go through some of my favorite mixtape DJs. So DJ Drama always put out good mixtapes, always had super high-end talent. Many times it was like Atlanta artists or Southern artists, which was cool. DJ Clue, legend, some of the best mixtapes of all time.
Love DJ Clue.
One of my favorites, DJ Who Kid, had a lot of the like the 50 Cent and G-Unit mixtapes. Some of my favorites. One of the best DJ drops of all time.
Yeah.
Should I recreate it? No,
it played in my head as you said his name. That's how you know you have a good drop.
Green Lantern, also one of my favorites. Usually had super exclusive stuff. He also produced, and he was one of the first hip-hop artists to bring some of that like electronic vibes to the mixtapes, which I really liked. Like trap stuff with hip-hop artists on it.
He had such a sound, I feel, that really was different from so many other mixtape artists. I really enjoyed his stuff as well.
Kid Capri OG, I wasn't consuming his mixtapes as much, but he was on some of the Funk Flex mixtapes, which would be the next one. A couple iconic older mixtapes for sure. Artists like DMX, Biggie, Tupac, some massive mixtape tracks from Flex.
They had everybody. He had everybody.
I'll throw two more out there. Two big ones. So K Slay was a huge one. Here in New York City, K Slay even had a late night radio show on Hot 97 playing all of this music. I would sometimes stay up till 2, 3 in the morning to record or listen to what K Slay was playing on the radio, unedited, all the curses. I don't know how they got away with it.
I think because after a certain time, at that period of time, I think after a certain time, it didn't need to be. It's very.
And then the final one was Don Cannon, who also had one of the best mixtape drops of all time.
Admittedly, that's the only one I don't know.
Actually, and one I didn't even mention, we talked about this beforehand, is my number one all-time mixtape art DJ, and that's DJ Big Mike. Some of the most iconic mixtapes of all time, Dipset, G-Unit, like some of the best ever.
That was a really special time for. We're naming a lot of stuff that did mixtapes like kind of have they lived on really after?
I think they still exist. You can go to like datpiff.com, and I forget some of the other ones. I think Clinton Sparks had a mixtape website. I forget what it is though. I think he sold it.
I'd like to dig back into if it still exists even on the periphery.
But yeah, like, I mean, we talk a lot about EDM on this podcast, but, Gary and I were both huge hip-hop heads growing up and into college and stuff. And like I said, the mixtape scene is one of those things that got me into DJing and producing music, and I'm really passionate about it. I have a hard drive that lives somewhere that has, like, every good mixtape that was ever created. I have to find it for sure.
Yeah, definitely, because that would be fun to go through some of the tracks that were forgotten about.
Think of it almost as like the EDM DJ mashup pack. That's sort of what it was, but for hip hop.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're taking some of the best hip hop lyricists and artists and rappers and putting them over the best hip hop beats.
Man, new mixtapes in the barbershop are like that was like holy grail shit. Like when that stuff would come out weekly or every other week or whatever it was, and you name it. Like I remember DJ Clue. It was a big deal when Clue dropped a mixtape, like a new one. Um,
Well, like Clue and Funk Flex had legit mixtapes come out as albums in record stores, which
yeah,
not
well,
many people got to that point.
that's how big their mixtapes became. I was a big fan of Clue for a long time prior to he even struck that deal, and by a long time, I was younger, so it was probably like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But then,
Listen,
like,
$10 in the
dropped his.
barbershop was how we got all these CDs, and it was all CDs for a long time. And tapes before that, cassette
And tapes, yeah. That's why, yeah, like the Clue stuff was all tape. I remember it converting over from tape to CD around 98.
We got listeners like, what the hell is a cassette tape? Now, I know we're dating ourselves a little bit, but I think it's like an important part of how Gary and I got to where we are as artists and what influenced us as we were listening to music and consuming music. And how we consume music.
As I always say, it's really important to be a student of the game as well. Like, if you're going to be and you want to be a great DJ and you want this to be your life, I think it's important to know where certain things came from. And I think the mixtape, if you're a hip-hop DJ or a fan of hip-hop, understanding the importance of the mixtape and what it did culturally is really an influence unlike anything that we saw, because, you know, hip-hop was in its infancy at that point. It was only probably about 15 to 20 years old. And those mixtapes had been around since probably the infancy of hip-hop and gained steam to become actual LPs and come out on album in some capacity.
What I really loved about the mixtape culture was that you could many times get a feel for who the next up-and-coming big artist was going to be.
Yeah.
And you got to hear that person over the best beats, and then they put out an album, and you're just more connected to that artist because you listened to this mixtape and you heard their flow and how they spit, and, like, it got me excited for their actual releases, you know?
It's funny. It brings to mind Nicki Minaj on kind of a more of a current level, even though that was still a long time ago, her mixtape that she put out. But that was that was huge before she even dropped an album. So I think on more of a current hip hop artist, I think that's probably a good one, even though that was still probably about 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great way to create buzz in the street, in your neighborhood, in the city. So it was something that was pretty regular from up-and-coming artists. I mean, the 50 Cent stuff really stands out because that was like my 50 Cent and Dipset stuff really stands out. That was like right when I was, in college kind of thing.
I love those tracks that were on. Yeah, Nas actually put out a mixtape of tracks. Even after he had 3 or 4 or 5 albums out, he put out this mixtape. I think it was around 99, and it was all this stuff that didn't get released, and then it wound up getting released as an album like 4 or 5 years later.
Sick.
But it was just so good. I forget what album it is now. But yeah, like, I felt like that was even a way for artists to kind of like test out some stuff and see like what the streets would like and what they wouldn't like. It's interesting.
Really, really cool world and scene that I was at one time really heavily into. So go check it out, guys. I think if you go to DatPiff, you could kind of go back and look at some of these from, the early 2000s and mid 2000s for sure.
And let us know if there is still a scene, or like I said, even if it's like kind of on the periphery, if it's not like it's very surface level. Like, I'm sure
there are hip hop artists still putting out mixtapes because, again, they're just taking the dopest beats that they like and rhyming over it. And maybe it's not a real release, but they put it out on SoundCloud or put it out wherever that's not an official release.
Let us know in the comments if there's like a way that you guys are discovering new artists outside of SoundCloud that might be like mixtape form, or if there's DJs that are presenting new artists or anything like that. Like, I would love to know and do some research on that. That'd be great.
For sure. All right, Gary, let's wrap. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Gary, we got anything else that we need to just throw out there or cover?
No, we're gonna start our Wednesday party, but I don't want to really go into too much information because we haven't finalized everything. But look out for a Wednesday party in Hoboken, New Jersey, or Jersey City, New Jersey. We'll see where that's going to be. It's going to be an industry party. It's definitely going to be on a Wednesday, and we're shooting for the second Wednesday of every month. Maybe a little test run in August. We'll let you know about that probably by the next episode. And then definitely in September, second Wednesday of the month, I'm flying in. Cream and I are doing back-to-back old school hip-hop set. I had to say it because we just talked about it. So come check us out for that. But we'll get you the details.
Man, that's going to be a trip down memory lane. We used to do that for like barbecues back in the day.
I know. I'm going to have to brush up on my skills with that. But I think that stems are going to make that really interesting.
One other thing I'm going to throw out there for these Wednesday parties, we want to open up the decks for you guys. So we're going to do like sign-up sheets at the venue type thing. We just want to get industry people out. We want to get all the DJs that hit us up to work together to come out and sign up so we could hear you DJ. If I hear you DJ and I listen to 3 tracks you mix together and I like your song selection and you're clean, there's like a 90% chance that you're going to get booked for a gig. So if you're local and you want to show either myself or Gary or UFOso what you got, this is your best opportunity and probably one of the quickest ways you could start working with us. So throwing that out there, it might be a little bit of a feeding frenzy the first couple, but I think it'll be good for you guys to get out and get to meet some of our DJs and get to meet me and Gary if you haven't already. So,
yep, for sure.
All right, guys, thanks for listening to this episode. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Peace, guys.